want to confess something to you. I have never really truly felt like I belong. Never, ever, anywhere. And I don't know why that is. It isn't that people have not been welcoming. It isn't that I haven't met incredibly kind people. I just never feel like I fit in. Can you relate? Early in elementary school, I remember that I was extremely shy, and I would spend my recesses and my lunch against the wall in school. I just figured that no one would want to play with me, so I didn't venture out into the playground. As time went on, I learned to make friends. I had a best friend in high school named Ken who loved hunting, and he loved fishing. He loved anything outdoors, really. Now, I didn't love that stuff myself, but I went along because, well, people need friends, don't they? Plus, while he was off shooting animals and spearing fish, I quite enjoyed being out in the wilderness or in the boat. And Ken, I have to say, was really good to me. He was a really good friend. When I came to faith later in high school, I knew that I wasn't like the other Christians. You see, I came to faith later. I was 16 years old, and so maybe I was just a little more rough around the edges than the other Christians. That still might be the case. I don't know. But then I was no longer like the other kids in school who didn't go to church and didn't have Jesus in their lives. They thought that I had gone strange. In college, I had a great circle of friends, but again, I never really felt like I fit in. You know, as an adult, it can be hard to make friends when you're busy with work and kids and household projects, especially if you move around quite a bit. I've often wondered, do I gravitate towards leadership roles because, well, if you don't feel like you fit in, you might as well just go ahead and blaze your own trail and see if anybody follows. So that's my confession. Do you ever feel like this? I can't be the only one, right? I mean, sometimes I wonder if any of us truly feels like they belong. And so we spend a lot of time trying to fit in, don't we? As teenagers, we spend a lot of time trying to pick out just the right outfit or the right makeup to fit in. As adults, we might join a quilting group or the Rotary to try and find like-minded people. There's just something about finding the people that are your people. And I suppose that might be harder today than it ever has been, given that year by year we are losing a sense of community. In his book, Living on the Edge, author Chip Ingram writes this. He says, in the 1970s, it wasn't uncommon for someone to leave a job that paid well and to go off into the woods and find themselves. The issue of existential 60s and 70s was one of identity. Who am I? And why am I here? He says the issue of the 21st century appears to be, where do I belong? Belonging is a God-given human need. We all need and we want the security of belonging to a family, belonging to a group, belonging to a team, belonging with people who need us, just like we need them in a healthy, productive way. And he goes on to say the fragmentation of the family and the rapid growth in technology have made people more mobile and isolated than ever before. The aching need to belong is at an all-time high. And I think he's right. And I think he wrote this a few years ago, too. Now, in this fall teaching series, we are exploring how we might go about rediscovering who we are if we find that we have lost a sense of that over the last little while. Last week, we observed that the best place to start that journey is by trusting the God, your maker, and what he says about you, who he says you are, to believe. Now, today I want to talk to you about how you were made to belong. And I want to begin this journey by taking us back around 2000 BC, about 4,000 years ago, to a man named Abraham, a man who had no place to belong. Well, I know you love this Bible trivia stuff, so why don't we begin with don't tell me you're not working now. Okay. I'm good now? Hey, all right. Let's go back to a man named Terah. Now, Terah was the ninth in descent from Noah. Yes, that Noah, the one with the drowning animals and people. Oh, we don't focus on that part. We focus on the ones in the boat. Yeah, the one that saved two of each kind and his family. So, Terah was the father of three sons. He had Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran had a son named Lot, who will come up later in our story. And the entire family, including grandchildren, lived in Ur of the Chaldees. Now, Abraham married Sarai, later to be known as Sarah. And Terah and Abram, at this time, Sarai and Lot departed for Canaan. They settled in a place up here called Haran. Terah died at the age of 205. He jogged every day, never smoked. Want me to try the joke I wrote down? He must have had amazing health care. No, I went with my gut. The one off the top of my head was better. Yeah. With his dad's death, it was time for Abram to figure out where he belonged. And this is when God showed up and told Abram to leave his country and his kindred and go to a land that he would show him. And he promised to make him a great nation. Here's what he said to Abram. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. It's quite the promise. The God of the universe descending down to this one man and making this huge promise. Well, Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran, and his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot with him traveled to Shechem in Canaan. Then he pitched his tent east of Bethel. Now there was a severe land at this time in the land of Canaan, so Abraham and Lot and their households, they traveled down to Egypt, which is a common theme in the Bible, isn't it? It seems to be the place to find food when you really need it. It's like McDonald's at 1 a.m. Well, on the way, Abram told Sarai to say that she was his sister, so the Egyptians would not kill him. So here's the conversation as they're traveling. Hey, babe. Yes, honey. You know how, you're really hot and everybody wants you, and I'm a really lucky man? Yeah, Abe. Yeah, I get that. Well, okay, we're going to go to this land, and the Pharaoh's going to really like you, and he's going to want to take you as his wife. So he'll probably kill me and take everything I have and take you as his wife. So why don't we say that you're my sister, and then he can take you as his wife, and I'll still live, and everything will be cool. And she went, okay. Well, that's what happened. Took Sarai as his wife, and it didn't go well for Pharaoh, for Egypt. There were curses and plagues upon the land because of the sin. Finally, Pharaoh somehow figured it out and went to Abraham and said, why would you do this to me? She's not your sister, she's your wife. I'm letting you go. Gave him provisions. I don't know why. I guess to appease Abram's God. Well, they lived for a while in the Negev, and after they were banished from Egypt, because they had to go somewhere, so they went to the wilderness, and finally they came back to the Bethel and the Ai area. So now you can see kind of where they traveled, all over the place. At this time, Abram's and Lot's herds were growing out of control. They had many people working for them, many herdsmen, and so they were coming into conflict. Basically, Lot's herdsmen and Abram's herdsmen were fighting over territory. That's my grass, no, that's my grass, and so on and so forth. So they decided that they would split. Abraham says, you pick first, wherever you want to go. And so Lot decided to go eastward to the plain of Jordan. Why? Well, he had first pick, and that was the best looking land. So he went where the most fertile land was. And then, of course, Abram went down to Hebron. All the while, as all of this is taking place, as he moves from place to place to place, Abram has this ringing in his ears. We can read it in the book of Genesis. As for me, God says, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram, your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. The thing is, Abraham never saw this promise fulfilled in his lifetime. He never saw it. In fact, it was like 100 years before he even had his first kid. Now, he did have a son. He had a son named Ishmael with his wife's maid. Yeah, it's a bit hinky, I'm telling you. Genesis, some shady stuff goes on. Then he has a son later on with Sarah. And when he was collecting his old age pension, he later had 6 more sons, 8 in total. Now, reflecting upon the change of his name to Abraham, which means the father of many nations, Abraham is considered to be the progenitor of many nations mentioned in the Bible. Among some of those are the Ishmaelites, the Edomites, the Amalekites, basically any ites that you know of, Abraham is their granddad. And of course, Lot with the Moabites and the Ammonites. So, Abraham lived to see his son Isaac marry Rebekah. It's a very famous story. And to see the birth of his twin grandsons, Jacob and Esau. Now, Jacob is the father of what we would come to know as the people of Israel. And out of Israel came a young man named Joseph and a young woman named Mary who had a baby they called Jesus. Abraham died at the age of 175. He was buried in the cave of Machpelah by his sons Isaac and Ishmael. And it's really important to note after this history lesson that Abraham died without ever having a true place to call home, a true place to belong. All he had was a promise. No wonder the people of Israel were always so focused on wanting a land to call their own and a cultural identity of their own and a king and a temple and all the trappings of permanence and belonging, because the search for belonging was in their very DNA. It was also their downfall. For you see, to belong, you have to know who is in and who is out. You have to set parameters around what is expected for you to be in and what transgressions are signs that you are on the outside. And my son Paxton, who you heard during the first 10 minutes of the service, he's in kindergarten. He's kindergarten now. He's getting big. He's 5. And the big thing in kindergarten and in junior kindergarten is this. You're not my best friend. You're not my best friend. If a kid has a toy and Paxton wants it, and that kid will not surrender the toy to Paxton, then Paxton says, you're no longer my best friend. And he'll come home and he'll say, Dustin, not my best friend. And the next day he'll come home and we'll say, how was your day? And he'll say, Dustin, my best friend again. Every day they flip back and forth. Best friend, not best friend. Best friend, not best friend. It's exhausting. But they definitely are beginning, even in kindergarten, to form these circles. Who's in and who's out? I said, Pax, you don't have to have a best friend. You can have many friends, and they can all be your best friends. And he looked at me, he said, Dad, no. In high school, that gets further reinforced, right? You've got your different cliques, you've got your jocks, and you've got your cheerleaders, and I don't know if they still do this, but they did in my day anyway. Whatever those categories are, maybe you've got your TikTokers and you've got your Instagrammers. I don't know how they do it. But we definitely had categories. The druggies hung out behind the school. The jocks hung out by the bleachers. I hung out with the chess club. We all had our groups. As adults, we still have groups. We divide ourselves maybe by economic status or political affiliations or often even religion. For the descendants of Abraham, those boundaries were formed by the Torah or law. Circumcision, dietary requirements, Sabbath observances, and more dictated who was in, but more importantly, who was out. And they prided themselves not only on being the ethnic children of Abraham, but also on their strict adherence to the Torah. And they divided the world into two categories, Israel and everybody else. They called them Gentiles. But it was never meant to be this way. It was never meant to be this way. Yes, the descendants of Abraham were supposed to be different, but not so that they could exclude other people, but so that they could include other people into what God was doing, and there is a difference. For when God called to Abraham, he was not establishing a religion, a set of rules to please this taskmaster God from on high. He was establishing a relationship. He said, Abe, I want you to be the beginning of a whole new family, a family that is shaped by a loving relationship with me, and your job is to bring everybody into this family, as many people as you can. Now, there would be signs of entrance into this family, into this relationship. Circumcision, for example, not eating pork, walking to temple on Saturdays. But these symbols were always meant to point towards the character of God, not the character of the person following them. You see the difference? The symbols were meant to point to the character of God, not the character of the person who was following them. Now, I hate to say this, but Christians do this too, right? We talk about Christians and non-Christians. Sometimes, if we're PC, we call them the unchurched, right? And in youth group, we were warned about the unchurched. We were warned about them because they were going to try to get us to dance and drink and smoke, but we could save their souls if we staunchly refused their evil ways. And so in response, we instinctively closed ranks. We sat together as Christians at lunch. We hung out together on weekends. We attended Bible camp and snow camp together in Muskoka. And pretty soon, it was next to impossible to help others to know how to come in because we were so busy keeping them out. And this is exactly what happened to Abraham's descendants. They so desperately wanted to remain pure, which is a great thing, but they forgot the whole point of the law to begin with. And that is to bring people into a relationship with God, Creator and Savior. Listen carefully to what God says to Abraham in the very beginning. This Well, I'd like you to, if this will work. There we go. We already read this, but listen again. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. Okay, we've already established that even though he had no kids at this time, he was the father of many ites and many great nations and the nation of Israel. And I will bless you. That's great. I will make your name great, so everyone will know him, and they do. And you will be, what? A blessing. Oh, okay. A blessing for his offspring, for Israel, right? I will bless those who bless you. Sounds good. And whoever curses you, I will curse. Okay, well, that's a little angry, God, but all right. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. All peoples of the earth. Not just the nation of Israel. Not just those who have their theology together. Not just those who are circumcised and walk to temple on Saturdays. All peoples will be blessed by you. It's right there. Well, let's fast forward a couple thousand years to a simple desert handyman named Jesus. And Jesus was appalled by how this relationship had been turned into a religion. Listen to these scathing words that he had for the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. He said, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to get in." Hard words, but true. Jesus says, you have spent so much time keeping people out that you yourself are no longer in. And how's that for a slap in the face? But these are the words they needed to hear. These are the words that we need to hear. For whenever we place barriers to people coming to Christ, church, we're no better. Does God desire certain behavior? Yes, absolutely. And we would want him to. We do not want to serve a God who condones evil. But we cannot demand that people look or think or even act like us in order to belong. For in Christ, all are welcomed in. As Paul said, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, nor slave nor free, nor is there male nor female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ. Because, church, here's the really good news for those who are searching for a place to belong, a place to fit in. You belong to him. It doesn't matter where you go, where you wander, or if you feel like you fit in, wherever you might be, you will always belong to him. You were born that way, and you will die that way. No matter what you look like, what you've done, even what you believe, God has held you in the palm of his hand since the moment you were born. He loves you. He gave his life for you. And he wants you to open up your eyes and realize that you already belong to him. He says, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me." And the same goes for Father Abraham. The same goes for my angler friend Ken, and even for those cool kids in high school that we were so afraid of knowing. You see, when God promised that Abraham and his offspring would bless the entire world, this was fulfilled in one child of Abraham in particular, Jesus, the Christ. A man, coincidentally, who also moved around a lot, and not just around Canaan and Egypt. He went from heaven to earth to hell and back again. And he did it to prove to you that there is nowhere that you can go, and there is nothing that you can do that he won't go looking for you. proving that no matter where you might stray on this huge planet of ours, you will always, always have a place to belong. Let us pray.